There are moments in your life when doors close without warning, when opportunities slip through your fingers at the last second, when relationships you prayed for fall apart, when plans you carefully built collapse in front of your eyes, and in those painful, confusing moments it feels like rejection, it feels like failure, it feels like loss. But what if what you are calling rejection is actually protection? What if what you are grieving was never meant to stay? What if the delay, the silence, the closed door, the unanswered message, the missed opportunity, the sudden ending is not the universe being cruel but God stepping in front of something that would have damaged your destiny? Because sometimes God blocks what is not meant for you, not to punish you but to preserve you, not to hurt you but to shield you, not to deny you joy but to redirect you towards something far greater than what you are currently able to see. And the hardest part about divine protection is that it rarely feels like protection in the moment. It feels like disappointment, it feels like heartbreak, it feels like confusion. But later, when time passes and clarity arrives, you begin to see the hidden mercy in what did not happen. You begin to see that the job you did not get would have drained your spirit, that the relationship that ended would have broken your peace, that the deal that failed would have trapped you in stress, that the opportunity that disappeared would have distracted you from your real purpose. And you realize that sometimes the greatest blessings are the things that never entered your life at all, because God could see what you could not see, God knew what you did not know, God understood the long-term consequences of what you were desperately asking for while you were only focused on the short-term excitement. And that is why divine timing often feels like delay, because you are looking at the present moment while God is looking at the entire timeline of your life. You are looking at emotion while God is looking at outcome. You are looking at desire while God is looking at destiny. And destiny requires alignment, not attachment. Destiny requires preparation, not impulse. Destiny requires protection, not desperation. And sometimes you are so emotionally invested in something that you cannot objectively see whether it aligns with who you are becoming. You are attached to the idea of it, attached to the image of it, attached to the comfort of it, but attachment does not equal assignment, desire does not equal design, and just because you want something deeply does not mean it is divinely designed for your path, because if everything you wanted immediately appeared in your life, you would walk straight into situations that would slowly erode your confidence, distort your identity, and derail your purpose. And so God blocks what is not meant for you, not because you are unworthy but because you are chosen for something more precise, more aligned, more intentional. And sometimes the block itself is the confirmation that your life is being guided, because if your life were random, nothing would resist you, everything would flow regardless of consequence. But resistance often signals redirection, and redirection is evidence of guidance, and guidance is evidence of purpose, and purpose means your life is not accidental, your setbacks are not meaningless, your delays are not pointless, and your closed doors are not empty, they are strategic, they are protective, they are necessary. And you may not understand the strategy now, but one day you will look back and thank God for the no that broke your heart, because that no was guarding a yes that was beyond your imagination. You will thank God for the relationship that left because it made room for someone who truly values you. You will thank God for the opportunity that collapsed because it forced you to build something stronger on your own. You will thank God for the season of loneliness because it introduced you to yourself, because sometimes what is not meant for you is removed so that you can discover who you are without it, because some attachments are not blessings, they are distractions, some connections are not divine, they are lessons, Some opportunities are not elevation, they are temptation disguised as advancement, and discernment often comes after disappointment, wisdom often comes after loss, growth often comes after endings. And faith is not tested when everything goes your way. Faith is tested when nothing makes sense and you still choose to trust that what is leaving for a reason, because trusting God when you receive is easy, but trusting God when you lose requires maturity, and maturity is understanding that your vision is limited but divine vision is complete, that your perspective is emotional but divine perspective is eternal. And when something is blocked, you have two choices. You can either interpret it as abandonment or as alignment. You can either spiral into bitterness or rise into belief, and belief does not mean you ignore the pain, it means you acknowledge the pain but refuse to let it define the narrative. It means you understand that the story is not finished yet, that the chapter that closed was not the entire book, that what feels final is often transitional, and sometimes what is blocked is not just protecting your future, it is shaping your character. Because every delay builds patience, every disappointment builds resilience. Every rejection builds clarity, every closed door builds faith, and faith built through experience is stronger than faith built through comfort, because comfort never stretches you. Comfort never refines you, comfort never forces you to confront your fears, but when something is blocked you are pushed into reflection, you are pushed into growth, you are pushed into deeper trust, and in that process you become stronger than you were before. You become wiser than you were before, you become more aligned than you were before, and alignment is more important than speed, because getting somewhere fast only matters if you are heading in the right direction, and sometimes God slows you down because the direction you were running toward was not designed for you. Sometimes God removes people because they were connected to a version of you that you are outgrowing. Sometimes God closes doors because staying would shrink you instead of stretch you. And growth requires release, elevation requires separation, clarity requires distance, and protection requires prevention, and prevention does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks subtle, sometimes it looks like a text message that never came, a call that was not returned, an interview that did not convert, a partnership that quietly faded, and you wonder why it did not work while not realizing that unseen dangers were quietly being removed from your path. Because not every blessing looks like addition, sometimes blessing looks like subtraction, and subtraction can feel painful, but it creates space, it creates room, it creates capacity for what is truly aligned with your spirit, and when something is truly meant for you it will not require you to betray your values, it will not require you to shrink your voice, it will not require you to chase endlessly, it will align with your growth, not compete with it, it will complement your peace, not disturb it, it will strengthen your purpose, not confuse it, and what is meant for you will arrive with clarity, not chaos, and if chaos surrounds it, that is often a sign that it is not yours to carry, because God does not bless you with what destroys your inner stability. And if something consistently disrupts your peace, that is often divine communication telling you to step back, because peace is not just a feeling, it is a compass, and when peace disappears, pay attention, when anxiety increases, pay attention, when your intuition whispers, pay attention, because sometimes God blocks externally what you refuse to release internally. And when you ignore red flags externally, the block becomes stronger, the door becomes firmer, the resistance becomes clearer, not to frustrate you but to wake you up, because protection sometimes requires interruption, and interruption feels inconvenient, but inconvenience is small compared to long-term regret, and many people only understand protection after experiencing damage. But you are being spared from that damage right now, even if you do not realize it, and the pain of what did not happen is temporary, but the consequences of what almost happened could have been permanent, and that is why gratitude in hindsight is powerful, because hindsight reveals hidden mercy. Hindsight shows you how close you were to situations that would have drained you, misled you, or broken you, and you realize that the block was a blessing in disguise. And sometimes God blocks what is not meant for you because you are settling for less than you deserve. You are compromising your standards, you are negotiating your worth, you are accepting crumbs while praying for abundance, and divine love refuses to let you shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never designed for your expansion. So the door closes, the opportunity disappears, the person walks away, and it hurts because you were willing to accept it, but God was not willing to let you live beneath your calling. And the block becomes a boundary placed around your destiny, because destiny requires boundaries, destiny requires discipline, destiny requires discernment, and when you are emotionally attached you often lack discernment. So the block becomes your discernment until you develop your own, and once you mature enough to recognize misalignment without divine intervention, the blocks become fewer because your awareness becomes sharper, your standards become stronger, your intuition becomes clearer, and you begin to cooperate with your destiny instead of resisting it, and you begin to see closed doors not as personal rejection but as divine redirection, and redirection is not failure, it is course correction, and course correction keeps you from wasting years in the wrong environments with the wrong people chasing the wrong goals, and time is precious, energy is limited, focus is powerful, and God values your time more than you do. So what feels like delay may actually be acceleration in disguise, because you are being rerouted away from detours that would have slowed your progress. And when something repeatedly does not work, no matter how much effort you apply, consider the possibility that you are not being blocked from success, you are being blocked from misalignment. Because what is meant for you will require effort, but it will not require self-betrayal. It will challenge you, but it will not consume your identity. It will stretch you, but it will not suffocate your spirit. And the difference between a test and a trap is alignment, and alignment produces growth while misalignment produces confusion, and if confusion dominates the connection, the opportunity, the environment, then perhaps the block is mercy, because mercy does not always feel gentle. Sometimes it feels abrupt, sometimes it feels final, sometimes it feels unfair, but fairness is not always the highest good. Protection is, and you are being protected in ways you cannot quantify, in ways you cannot calculate, in ways you cannot fully understand yet, and one day when the right door opens effortlessly, when the right relationship feels secure, when the right opportunity aligns naturally, you will understand why the others had to fall away, because contrast creates clarity, and clarity creates conviction, and conviction creates confidence, and confidence allows you to walk into your blessings without fear of losing yourself, because what is meant for you will not require you to fight for your worth, it will recognize it. It will not require you to beg for attention, it will offer it. It will not require you to force compatibility, it will flow naturally. And when you experience that level of alignment, you will realize that the blocks were not barriers, they were bridges guiding you towards something better. And so instead of asking why did this not work, begin asking what was I being protected from. Instead of focusing on what you lost, focus on what you preserved. Instead of grieving only the closed door, consider the unseen dangers behind it, because faith is not blind optimism. Faith is trusting that even when you do not have the full picture, the one guiding you does, and trust transforms frustration into patience, it transforms confusion into curiosity, it transforms loss into learning, and when you operate from that perspective, every block becomes meaningful, every delay becomes purposeful, every ending becomes instructional, and your life begins to feel less chaotic and more guided, less random and more intentional, and that shift alone changes everything because you stop chasing what resists you and start preparing for what aligns with you. You stop forcing doors and start strengthening yourself. You stop interpreting silence as rejection and start seeing it as redirection, and in that shift you reclaim your power, because you realize that what is truly meant for you cannot be permanently blocked. It can be delayed for preparation. It can be redirected for growth. It can be refined through patience, but it cannot be taken away from you, and what leaves permanently was never assigned to stay, and that truth brings peace, and peace allows you to move forward without bitterness, without resentment, without desperation, knowing that if it did not happen it was not meant to happen, and if it is meant to happen nothing will stop it. And until then, every closed door is not a denial, it is divine design shaping a future that is greater than your current imagination. And one day you will look back at this season of blocks and realize that you were not being rejected, you were being redirected. You were not being punished, you were being positioned. You were not being abandoned, you were being advanced, and everything that did not work was simply clearing the path for what will. There are seasons in your life when the pattern becomes undeniable, when you start noticing that certain things keep slipping away no matter how tightly you try to hold them, when plans collapse at the last minute, when people withdraw without explanation, when opportunities almost materialize but never fully land. And in those repeated experiences you begin to feel targeted by disappointment, you begin to question your worth, your timing, your ability, even your faith. Yet what if the repetition is not proof of failure but evidence of divine interference? What if the reason it keeps not working is because it consistently does not belong in your story? Because when something is truly aligned with your destiny, it may require effort, patience, and growth, but it will not require you to constantly override warning signs. It will not demand that you silence your intuition. It will not force you to become someone smaller just to sustain it. And sometimes God allows you to approach the door just close enough to see it clearly before it closes, so that you can learn the lesson without living the consequence. Because proximity teaches what distance never could, and near experiences often reveal hidden truths about your desires, your fears, and your attachments, and you start to realize that not every almost is a loss. Some almost experiences are rehearsals for discernment, some almost blessings are exposures of incompatibility. Some almost relationships are mirrors reflecting wounds you still need to heal, and when you look back honestly you can often see the cracks you ignored, the red flags you minimized, the uneasy feelings you rationalized. Because desire can be louder than wisdom when you want something badly enough, and in those moments divine blockage becomes louder than your desire because protection overrides preference. And it is not that you were wrong for wanting it, it is that your wanting was not enough to make it right for you, because alignment is not built on intensity, it is built on integrity, and integrity means the situation must match your growth, your values, your long-term vision, and sometimes what you are reaching for fits your current emotion but not your future evolution, and God will not allow you to anchor yourself to something that will restrict who you are becoming, because growth requires space, and certain attachments suffocate that space slowly, subtly, quietly, until you wake up years later wondering how you drifted so far from your original self, and divine blocks prevent that slow erosion. They interrupt the drift before it becomes distance. They dismantle the illusion before it becomes identity. And illusions are dangerous because they feel good at first, they look promising at first. They sparkle with potential at first, but potential without alignment becomes pressure, and pressure without purpose becomes exhaustion, and exhaustion slowly steals your joy, your clarity, your confidence, and sometimes God blocks what is not meant for you because you are about to accept something that looks like elevation but is actually distraction, something that looks like love but is actually attachment, something that looks like opportunity but is actually compromise, and compromise is subtle. It starts small, a boundary crossed here, a standard lowered there, a value add just slightly for convenience, and before you know it you are negotiating pieces of yourself just to keep something that was never secure to begin with, and security that requires self-abandonment is not security at all, it is fear disguised as stability, and fear cannot be the foundation of anything meant to last. Because what is built on fear collapses under pressure, and what is built on alignment strengthens under pressure, and sometimes the reason something collapses so easily is because its foundation was never solid for you, and collapse feels catastrophic in the moment. It shakes your confidence, it shakes your plans, it shakes your identity, but shaking reveals what is stable and what is unstable, and instability exposed early is mercy compared to instability discovered too late, and late discoveries often come with deeper scars, deeper losses, deeper regrets, so early endings are hidden blessings even if they feel abrupt, because abrupt endings prevent prolonged suffering, and prolonged suffering often stems from staying too long in places that stopped growing you, and growth is a sign of alignment. When something is meant for you it expands you, it stretches you, it teaches you, it sharpens you, it deepens you, it does not shrink you into survival mode, it does not trap you in constant anxiety, it does not make you question your worth daily. And if you are constantly fighting to prove your value within a space that is supposed to honor you, that space is likely not yours, because what is meant for you recognizes your value without persuasion, and this recognition does not mean there will be no challenges, it means the challenges will refine you, not erase you, and refinement feels different than erosion. Refinement strengthens your core while erosion weakens it. And learning to recognize that difference is part of spiritual maturity, because in the beginning you may confuse intensity with destiny, you may confuse chemistry with compatibility, you may confuse speed with confirmation, but maturity teaches you that what is rushed often bypasses wisdom, and what bypasses wisdom eventually demands correction, and correction can be gentle through a closed door or painful through lived consequences, and divine mercy prefers gentle correction when possible, even if it bruises your expectations temporarily, and sometimes you interpret the block as silence from God, but silence is not absence. Silence is often strategic. It is the pause before redirection, it is the stillness before clarity, and in that silence you are invited to reflect rather than react, to observe rather than chase, to evaluate rather than assume, and reflection reveals patterns, and patterns reveal lessons, and lessons prevent repetition, and repetition is costly when the lesson is ignored. Because life will continue presenting similar situations until the internal growth matches the external desire. And when you outgrow certain patterns, the blocks become fewer, not because life is easier but because you are wiser. You are no longer drawn to what drains you, you are no longer impressed by what once distracted you, you are no longer willing to trade peace for potential, and that shift changes everything because you begin to cooperate with divine alignment rather than resist it, and cooperation looks like patience when doors close. It looks like gratitude even in disappointment, it looks like surrender without defeat, because surrender is not giving up, it is giving over. It is acknowledging that your understanding is partial but divine wisdom is complete, and that acknowledgement releases pressure from your shoulders. You no longer feel responsible for forcing outcomes, you focus instead on preparation, on growth, on character, on skill, on healing, because when the right opportunity arrives you want to be ready, not reactive. You want to be whole, not desperate. You want to enter it with clarity, not confusion. And preparation seasons often feel like isolation seasons, like nothing is moving, like everything is paused, but roots grow in hidden seasons, strength develops in unseen spaces, and just because nothing visible is happening does not mean nothing meaningful is happening. Because some of the most significant transformations occur internally before they ever manifest externally. And when you look back you will see that the time you thought you were being blocked was actually the time you were being built, the time you thought you were losing was the time you were learning, the time you thought you were forgotten was the time you were being fortified, and fortified people handle blessings differently, they protect them, they steward them, they appreciate them, because they understand the cost of misalignment, and they no longer romanticize what once hurt them, they no longer chase what once confused them, they no longer beg for what once disrespected them, and that confidence is quiet but powerful. It does not need validation because it has perspective, and perspective is one of the greatest gifts hidden inside divine blocks, because once you see clearly you cannot unsee, once you understand alignment you cannot comfortably settle for chaos, and once you experience peace you cannot convincingly pretend anxiety is love, and so when something is blocked again you respond differently. You feel the sting but you also feel the trust, you feel the disappointment but you also feel the protection, you feel the sadness but you also feel the quiet assurance that if it left it was never assigned to stay, and that assurance steadies you, it keeps you from spiraling into self-doubt, it keeps you from forcing replacements, it keeps you from rushing into distractions just to fill the void. Because voids are not meant to be rushed, they are meant to be respected. They create room for something better, and better often requires space that the previous thing was occupying, and so the removal becomes necessary not because you were unworthy but because you were ready for an upgrade you could not yet see, and upgrades rarely come while you are clinging to outdated versions of your life, outdated mindsets, outdated relationships, outdated goals, and sometimes the block is not about the external situation at all, it is about internal transformation, about shedding identities that no longer fit, about releasing narratives that limit you, about redefining success in a way that aligns with your soul, not just your ego, because ego wants immediate gratification but your soul desires lasting fulfillment, and lasting fulfillment requires discernment, patience, courage, and trust deepens every time you survive what you thought would break you, every time you witness clarity emerge from confusion, every time you realize that the door that closed was guarding you from settling, and settling is subtle but dangerous, it convinces you that almost is enough, that partial peace is acceptable, that conditional love is sufficient, but you were not designed for almost, you were not created for partial alignment, you were not meant to thrive in conditional spaces, and when you start believing that fully you stop mourning every closed door as if it was your only chance, You understand that what is truly meant for you cannot miss you, it cannot be stolen from you. It cannot be permanently blocked from you, because destiny does not operate on accident, it operates on alignment, and alignment cannot be forced, it can only be prepared for, and preparation requires trust, and trust grows each time you choose to see the block not as betrayal but as blessing in disguise, because sometimes the greatest evidence that your life is guided is not what enters your life but what is kept out of it.